Good afternoon from the Air Cargo Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. My name is Scott Case. I'm the founder and chief storyteller of Position Global. We're here for a fireside chat with the team from CargoSprint. I'm very happy to have with me from my left to my further left, actually, Rayo Torres, the COO of CargoSprint. I also have Chuck Manini, who is their Director of Information Services, and CargoSprint's founder and CEO, Joshua Wolf. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Scott and FreightWaves crew.
Thank you. So it was a lot of fun. Just right before this, we had a session on airport congestion, where Joshua, you were up there talking a little bit about some of the challenges that are faced at airports around the United States as we sort of modernize and try and find ways to deal with more air cargo in the same amount of space. You and I actually share something in common in that we're both licensed customs brokers. You relayed the story about how you got frustrated with the payment process. And I was just kidding around with you before this that I went out and all I would do is I would scream and I would yell and I'd get angry and then I would just write a check and send it off and do it all over again. You, on the other hand, tried a different tact and sort of have us to where we're here talking about this now today.
Right, in 2012, I saw a need out of my own personal frustration.
Yeah.
So we had cargo stuck. I worked for a freight forwarder. A cargo was stuck at a cargo facility for a $65 import service fee. And at the time, in 2012, checks were the only way. In some cases, they still are in some cities. And I said, there's got to be a better way. So we put check printers in messengers' offices throughout the USA. And a customer was able to pay online. And we printed a check at a local messenger delivered the same day. We soon realized that's not the future. Obviously, checks aren't the future, and we moved forward with other solutions.
And the thing about that too, Rayo, is that the same way that you've moved forward with other solutions, developing technology is really iterative. I mean, we look at just how much faster our phones have gotten, how better our cameras and TVs have gotten. Has been developing what you've done with your platform had that same sort of iterative design where you have to sit down and say, what's the priority, and then how do we determine what comes next?
Yeah, we actually have our in-house software lab. That was a priority for us, so we can continue evolving, and not only on the payment side of things, but we also created new solutions, and we are constantly using the newest technologies because coding languages are changing, right, and evolving. And how do we prioritize? It's natural, it's more organically based on the demand and of the needs of our users.
And I mean, let's face it, you ask 10 different people in a room what they want for lunch, you're going to get 10 different answers. And I would imagine the same happens then with users when you ask people for suggestions or solutions. A little bit of surveying, maybe something that wins. If you ask if something is in higher demand, maybe you prioritize that through the development cycle, then...
And as Chuck Manini says all the time during our meetings, and he has a very powerful phrase to me, he says boots on the ground. And we don't do handshakes at directors level, at corporate, where you don't see the operation and the pain of the users. We have a lot of people, like our directors, go in cargo facilities and they experience firsthand the problems that truckers are facing, that the cargo facility is facing, and our customers, the freight forwarders, they are facing. We listen, that's our research, we do our research, we see the problems firsthand, and we create solutions for that. The directors work very, very close with the software development team, and that's the beauty of that right. we are very close. There's not a long chain of command and scheduling a new feature for 2021.
17 people signing off.
Exactly. It happens right away. That's the beauty of having your own software team in-house. Yeah.
And you can deliver it iteratively too, and distribute it then out to everybody, because having it centralized, one of the benefits obviously of today's modern day technologies, you can make the change on your side and then it just propagates down to all of your customers in all those different places.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, you said it right.
And you use the phrase boots on the ground, and Chuck, I'll turn to you. I mean, in your career as a trucker, you certainly saw, and I understood as a customs broker and a freight forwarder, that the trucker was really often the tip of the whip. And if something went wrong, the person that felt it most acutely really was the trucker. Certainly the client didn't get their cargo or if there was a problem, but I mean, you were the one that were fielding the calls. You were the one that were between the rock and the hard place of the forwarder saying, I delivered that check, it's been paid, it's been released, and your person sitting there going, no, it isn't, I'm across the counter, and they're telling me it hasn't.
Yeah, well, let me step back. I used to be a truck driver, so I know firsthand, let's go back 10 years ago when Camelot would give us a pickup order as a company to pick up cargo. Their obligation was to create a flight folder and make sure that there was a pickup order in the flight folder, and we had a 3461 custom clearance attached to a pickup order, and the freight forwarder would check with the airlines to make sure the freight was broken down, it was paid, it was available before they dispatched the trucker. Well, today, the documents are moving a lot faster than the cargo is. So what happened out of habit, and we created this airport congestion, is we're just sending truckers over to the airlines and the freight facilities and telling them, just go check to see if it's ready, because they're moving the files a lot faster than they are cargo. So that's our problem with the airport congestion, and we really have a solution. And really, when Ryo said we're boots on the ground, we go right on site and we understand the facility's needs, and we work with the front counter, the warehouse, and the managers, and work with them like boots on the ground.
So when you enter a market and you're going to work, and your clients are primarily the ground handlers, obviously, or the airlines directly, depending upon the market in which you're in and the type of customer it is, who embraces the solution, and who do you sometimes need to just either explain it or give a little bit of encouragement and nudging to really kind of get there? Because obviously, if somebody is committed to say, hey, listen, we want to find a solution to this problem that we know that we have here at our dock, they're on board. But maybe the people that are using them directly or indirectly need a little bit of arm twisting.
Well, what we do is when we go to a facility, I'll go on site, or we'll go on site, and we'll say, hey, pretend you're hiring me as an employee, as I'm working the front counter, as I'm working the warehouse, as I'm a truck driver coming in your building. So we understand the freight flow and all of your operation before we come on site and give you a whole solution. This is what you need to do. We understand all the pain points, and then we start working as a team. We have meetings. Okay, for this facility, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put, this computer here. We're going to work with the warehouse on this side. So we work really close with the frontline people to understand, how this process is going to work.
When you're in a market and you're doing these types of things, what are some of the commonalities you see within the facilities? So obviously, a lot of markets have regional truckers, particularly as you look at some of the larger gateway cities, and whether they be a regional operator, whether they be a nationwide operator that sort of has that footprint. Do you need to sort of adjust that culture based on the truckers or the forwarders or the type of traffic that's coming through that facility, would you say?
No, the common problem that happens is the trucker will show up with 5 pickup orders, in their hand, 5 different master airway bills, maybe 10, 15 different house bills. And they'll go to the front counter and say, hey, I want to pick up this cargo.
Right.
Well, for every master bill and every house bill, it takes about 7 minutes to process and look through all the computers and make sure that freight is released, it's been paid, it's broken down. So can you imagine if they come in with 5, but only 1 shipment's ready? So you've wasted all that time for that driver to sit in the front counter for freight that's not available. That's the issue we're having, and every facility has that same issue.
And to bring it back, or to bring it around to a topic that's been hot the last couple of days, Joshua, I'll take it to you. Just sort of the environmental piece of this thing. I mean, there's been the discussions for the ESGs and how this does. As you talk about those 7 minutes and the pileups, you're doing work out on the West Coast. They're a lot more sensitive to, say, operating trucks, emissions. There's idling rules out there. So do your customers also look at this and say, hey, listen, this is helping sort of our employee workplace. It's better environmentally because we're turning people better. I mean, is there a benefit to this as well for the greater planet, do you think?
Certainly. I mean, if you've got less trucks waiting in one area, less trucks idling, then yes, there's a benefit to that. Certainly hasn't been a big key point, but I think more emphasis should be put on it. But yes, I mean that's the goal. Less congestion, get the trucks in and out. If they're spending less time on the airport, then they're using less fuel, right? So,
a question for you, Ryo. Is this scalable? I mean, so if you look at places where there's a little bit of a congestion problem, and somebody's just trying to optimize and be better with their process versus someone who's really looking at a serious traffic problem that's impeding their flow and their ability to get work done within their building. Can you say, we've got this here, and regardless of how big or how small it is, you're able to adjust, and it just, I mean, the solution adjusts based on the amount of volume that it needs to address.
Yeah, of course. I work very close with our software engineers, and they call it like having a box of Legos. So you have different features. One feature might not work for a facility, and another feature will work for other facilities. So the beauty of our own box of Legos is that you can turn some features on, and we do customization, like based on this research in each facility at the airport level, at whatever level you want to call it, but it's research and say, okay, we have these tools, this might not work for you, this will work for you, but everything is in there, and if it's not in there, it's a new feature or something different that we don't have, we develop it.
Chuck, is congestion a bi-directional problem? Like, we think about the tremendous amount of flood of imports that come in and the amount of time that it takes to break it down, the regulatory component of getting CBPs released, making sure that the charges that are due are coming in. The solutions for the technology that we're looking to do to reduce congestion, is there a role to be played for helping reduce congestion for export cargo as well, or domestic, which affects a lot of the people here at this conference?
It's a good question. The way I look at export, if you go on our system and book a shipment for export, this helps the warehouse, because a lot of times they're building up ULDs and they're waiting for this last piece of cargo to show up at the facility so they can finish building that ULD. Well, sometimes they have to stop building it because they got a booking that's saying, hey, I'm going to drop off this 3,000 kilo piece, here's your DIMS. So they need that last piece. So can you imagine the efficiency your warehouse can have now by booking export shipments? And they'll know that, hey, Cunanego or Shankers, they're going to drop off this freight with this trucker at this time. So now they have true picture of how to build an export flight and in the time efficiency.
It's kind of funny. There's a great Dilbert cartoon where the last frame of the Dilbert cartoon is the pointy-haired boss looking at Dilbert and going, from now on I want advance notice of any unplanned outages. And a lot of times that's sort of what is happening. I mean, as we're pushing to sort of automate this process, the more visibility, the more information, it's decision making. It's like if you walk into a hospital and you go, I'm sick, they're not just going to open you up on a table and give you open heart surgery. They're going to run some diagnostics and find out what it is to make that decision. And I think the information that we're now able to start to generate as an industry is really what's going to make a difference here. Josh, you fly enough. I mean, we all fly enough doing this thing for a living. I mean, we all remember the days of paper tickets. Heaven forbid you lost that paper airline ticket. I mean, you were clinging to that for dear life. And now there are no more paper tickets. I mean, for people who've been to CNS, which is the North American IATA headquarters, enshrined on the desk in their lobby in Miami is the last paper ticket that was ever issued. And it's amazing to think about how we were able to get rid of paper for passengers a lot faster than we got rid of paper for cargo, or made this a lot more efficient for cargo. How have you seen the advent of technology, the advent of what this industry is starting to do, catching up really rapidly from behind? And do you feel like it's moving faster and faster to get to these solutions that people need?
There's still a ton of paper. On the export side, we've got TSA regulations, and there's questions, does this government entity need original or not? And we don't really know the answers. There's a ton of paper. On the import side, you've got original delivery orders, and you've got warehouse release forms, and you've got authority to make entries, and some markets have unique forms and some don't. And in Los Angeles, you've got an authority to make entry form.
And some export countries where you need to have an original airway bill still, despite the press and the move drastically to try and move to e-airway bill as an industry-wide thing to get rid of that paper.
I think we're almost there, because as I go and see all these different facilities, at all these different airports, you can see cubby holes of all these documents that are sitting in there waiting for the freight forwarders to pick it up. So that's kind of telling me that they really don't need these documents as much as everybody assumes we need a document to clear cargo nowadays. So that's getting away, because they're just staying there for 15 days and then they toss them.
It was like looking at the cubbies at customs, when every customs broker had a cubby hole, so that as the customs officers worked the entry, it went back out into that broker, back into that messenger's cubby. And that was great when those are the brokers in that city that were filing those entries. But now, courtesy of RLF, there's paperwork that has just been reduced to an electronic transaction that never crosses a counter, that never manifests itself on someone's desk, but is only there on a screen.
Right. We don't have to get rid of all the paper all at once. It's one step at a time, taking a look at every single process individually and saying, you know what? Why are we really using this particular form here? Why is this warehouse using that form and this one? It's one step at a time. So we are, talking about those boxes. If you look at the number of paper, it is shrinking.
Yeah,
that's good.
No, it's fun stuff. So Josh, it's a silly question, but can this be fun to do? And I say fun in the sense that some people like Apple, some people like Samsung, some people like Android, some people like iOS. But the fact is that as we look to people to adopt this technology, it's got to be something that's easy to use. It's got to be something that's intuitive. It's got to be something that makes sense. There's joy in data. I mean, certainly data visualization is something as well that's taking off as people present to show the trends and identify this. Do you think that this is something that should be pleasant and easy to use, or is it just, do we just have to deliver a solution, user experience be darned?
Well, everybody's idea of fun is different. So from a personal experience, fun for me is making a change, right? One of my most exciting moments in this industry was I was outside in Los Angeles, and I was walking outside a cargo industry, and there was a really long line. And a driver rolled down his window and said to me, "Hey, they need your solution over here. They need Sprint Pass over here." And to me, that was fun, right? That is fun. Actually being on the ground. Fun for me is not actually running a company, okay? Fun for me is making changes, being on the ground, listening to truckers, and solving problems, right? I'm an entrepreneur, that's where it comes.
I can tell you, for me, fun is seeing the employee's face, the front counter person.
Right.
When they used to be able to take a piece of paper and handwrite the master bill and reject a shipment, okay? Here's the master bill, here's the house bill, here's my name, today they click in our system and boom, it prints up a PDF. And when you see their face saying, wow, I wish I had this long time ago.
Yeah.
That's fun for me, seeing the employee's face and what difference we make in their lives by just one click, and they have a PDF with a rejection form. That's fun for me.
And it's unrelated to sort of what we're talking about from a congestion point of view, but one of the things that came up was keeping and retaining people. That was one of the sessions that we had late in the day yesterday. Does bringing this sort of technology and just bringing these solutions to airports, do you think it helps the retention and sort of keeps the cycling to a minimum? Because a lot of times we see people just come and go in this industry, whether it be from the counter side or from the trucking side, because they get burned out. They get burned out with the way that they're treated. Do you think that indirectly the solutions that are now making themselves apparent, do you think that helps retention for the industry?
I think it does. No one wants to deal with an angry trucker, right? You don't want to be a front counter agent and have somebody angry that they've been waiting 2 hours, right? It's not going to make your job fun. So we're actually creating new positions. If you bring efficiency to the front counter, that front counter agent could be working, in the back office, scheduling pickups and reviewing documents and paperwork and data ahead of time, right? Not before. So we're creating new roles, we're moving those roles, and we're reducing stress. So that in turn makes things fun.
Yeah, and I see in our world, in our industry, it's complex. It's hard to teach someone brand new off the street what import and export is and what the definition of everything. So what we have in mind with our software, it's click, click, click. So the process of training someone is very easy. So when people start realizing that software is easy, they're going to stay with the company. When you have a software that's, complicated and you have to remember this code and that code to do this, to get done with the end of your day, people get frustrated. And they said, this has got to be a better job.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done, is some studies on, the software being so easy to use.
No, and that is certainly something that you're right about. The key thing I think that we need to take away as an industry and the solution that you're bringing in, and there was a lot of thoughtful things that came out in the panel discussion that you participated in earlier, is that there is a need for this. And I think that as we've seen the technology changing and evolving, people who had sort of older siloed systems that maybe didn't talk with one another or didn't have the connectivity that some of the newer programming languages have, those APIs, that data sharing is gonna be a lot better, because that data is gonna be the king. Your customers use that to show how successful things are, and conversely, the people who are going in there as well that are participants and users in these systems can see how things go as well.